Hi friends, this is Paul Roberts, and I have another one in the series of videos that I'm doing, especially for beginners, but for everybody else as well, visitors, members of our Sangha, anybody who wants to listen to them. I will include my email address in the bottom in the little box so that if you want to contact me, I'll be happy to correspond with you, and we can even talk on Skype or the phone if you'd like, whatever's good for you. So anyway, here's how I got to thinking about this. We have a member of our Sangha, our online Sangha, and she and I were talking a little bit on the phone early on, and then after she'd been here, I don't know, a year and a half or so, she started to really get hungry to have the full true Shin Buddhism experience, which is the receiving of Amita's gift of Shinjin, or faith, mind, consciousness. And she said, I really want this to happen for me. I'm committed to Shin Buddhism. I recognize it's the right path for me. And, it's like Shinjin or bust. And, that's the kind of person, I love to hear from, particularly because they're serious. They recognize the issues involved in terms of birth and life and taking rebirth over and over, etc., and coming to the end of suffering and the beginning of Buddhism. And when somebody comes to me in that state of mind, I will do everything I possibly can to help such a person. So anyway, we're talking, and I know her already, and her background is that she grew up in the Philippines, and about 99% of the people there are Catholics, and many of them are very serious Catholics, and she was among them and her family as well. And then when she came to adulthood, she had a friend who was actually also a professor of hers, I believe, and he introduced her to this particular form of Hinduism, and he had joined it, and he recommended that she take a look at it. I don't think he was pushy, but she joined it as well. And so for many years, she was doing the practices that these folks recommended to get into a higher state of consciousness and ultimately reach the goal of full enlightenment. They don't call it Buddhism, but that's the same thing that they're talking about. So my friend did this, and then finally she was talking to this guy who she now has a long-term friendship with, and he said, I've left this Hinduism behind, and I found this particular form of Buddhism that just makes all the sense in the world to me, and I am now a true Shin Buddhist person. And so he was really so certain about this, and she had a lot of respect for him. And so she started to join our Sangha and began listening to these introductory videos and listening to the ongoing Dharma dialogue that we have there, literally all year long, and we've been doing this now since 2006. So in the archives, there are probably, 8,000-9,000 emails at this point, but it's a very active Sangha. We have people from literally all around the world, China and New Zealand, and lots from Europe and Canada, and all over the United States, and I don't think we have anybody from Antarctica yet, but we'll see. Anyway, so, she joins and she's listening, and we start to talk, and we get to know each other on the phone, which is really nice. I always enjoy doing that with somebody. And then we start a deeper dialogue. She wants to really talk with me regularly, and I'm thrilled to do that. And we start by having an ongoing private conversation by email, and I'm thrilled to do that. And then I say, would you like to try to graduate to either phone or Skype, because we've been emailing, and I get a little bit of this carpal tunnel syndrome at this point, whatever it is, wrist strain, because I do write so much. So she says, yeah, I'd love that. And she was ready on Skype with her family back home. So this was an easy switch for her. And so we started to talk on Skype, which we do now every couple of weeks. But anyway, I think when we were still on the phone together, we hadn't yet started Skyping. And, she mentioned to me that, because she's not sure about herself, really more than anything else. And of course, that's extremely common. But she's not even sure about am I even a Buddhist? Um, and I said to her, if you are, committed to these teachings, or any other of the schools of Buddhism, with Zen, Theravada, Tibetan Buddhism, whatever, you're a Buddhist. Okay, if you say you are, and it means that to you in your heart, as far as the Buddha is concerned, it's a done deal. But it didn't feel like a done deal to her. And the reason it didn't was because she had never formally gone through the act of taking refuge. I put it in quotes because it's a big deal. It's actually, in many schools, it is a ceremonial thing, it's a ritual thing, but it's a big deal. It's not a big deal for the Buddha, who has total love and compassion for everybody and takes everybody just like they are. Okay, and if they never get to do this ritual, he still accepts them just the way they are. But it's a big deal very often for the disciple who wants to really say something formal, with or without witnesses, so that he's kind of nailed it into the ground in his mind or her mind. Okay, and so I said, listen, if you've never taken refuge, we can fix that right here, right now, right over the phone. I said, I'm just going to say some very simple things, and I'm sure you agree with them all already because I know you well. And then as I say each piece, you just say it back to me. And so we did that. We went through this thing. And at the end, she said, I just really feel terrific now. I just know I am a Buddhist. I am a disciple of the world turner, Shakyamuni Buddha. And so that really got me thinking that there are a lot of people who come into our Sangha with all sorts of backgrounds. We've got people who have come from another formal environment like Zen or Tibetan or Theravada or whatever, and they've already gone through a ritual process. They've taken refuge, as they were in that particular tradition. And they're kind of good to go, in a sense. They know they're Buddhists. They're just looking for the right Buddhist path for them. And they didn't find it where they were, so now they're coming to visit us to see if this might be it. Okay, that's great. Those people are good to go. The second kind of people we get are actually people like me. I was a solitary practicer, okay? I was not a member of any school. I never took formal refuge with any teacher in any tradition. But just me, myself, and I, reading and studying really for decades various spiritual and religious traditions, I had finally concluded at the end of all this that this fellow Shakyamuni, this was really the smartest guy in the room, and nobody that I could see could hold a candle to this guy, and I really looked hard. And so I had decided in my own mind, I'm a disciple of this man. And I took refuge very informally. Me, myself, and I, it was right in my study. I don't think I even said the words out loud, but I really did take refuge in the three jewels or the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And it was a done deal for me. So after that, anybody ever asked me in my life, do you follow any path? I'd say, yes, I do. And if they'd ask me, well, what is it? I'd say, I'm a Buddhist. Didn't have to hem and haw about it. Didn't have to think about it. I just knew, I am a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha. And this is my, resting place in my long journey as a seeker. Okay. So I realized there was also a third category of people. And this was a category of people like my friend who I was talking to. And these people, literally, they come in from the cold, even as they join our Sangha. They haven't studied anything about Buddhism before. They really don't know anything about Buddhism before. And they're literally coming to us, like babies, who haven't had anything to eat yet from the Buddhist meal at all. And I said, these people, they need, some definitive guidance so they can also take refuge in the three jewels, the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And we really need to provide that in our Sangha because we're online and all our people are all over the world. We never get together physically, except once in a rare while. Somebody will be going through New York and we'll actually get to have a little time together like I did with the guy recently in LaGuardia Airport. I'm 10 minutes from LaGuardia Airport, by the way. If you're coming through the city, LaGuardia, or you're coming down to JFK, and you want to get together for a little bit, and have a cup of coffee or whatever, please, I would love to meet you. Okay, I am a lonely Shin Buddhist. I really don't want it to be that way, but that's the way it is. So anyway, if you're coming through, give me a holler. Okay, I'd love to meet you. It does great things for me, and I hope it does good things for you too. So I said, we have to help this group of people particularly so that they have this sure sensibility. And so this is basically what I took my friend through, and I want to share it with you so that you can do it right here through the interaction with the screen, or if you want, you can call me up and you can do it, and just send me a little email and I'll make time for you. I'll put you on my calendar. And here's what I basically said to my friend. I said, okay, so just say this after me. I take refuge in the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. I am a disciple of Shakyamuni. And she said it. And then I said, I take refuge in the Dharma, in the many teachings that Shakyamuni gave over the course of his life, and even after his life on earth was over. And she said it. And then I said, I take refuge in the Sangha, the global community of people who themselves have taken refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, the total Sangha all over the world. Maybe 300-400 people, nominal Buddhists, and some subset of that truly disciples of Shakyamuni. I have no idea what that number would be. So she said that too. And then I said, and specifically, and I said this to her because she was already a true Shin Buddha. She was committed. This is her path for the rest of her life. And so I said, I also take refuge in the Buddha Amida. She said that because she knows from listening to many talks that I've given and other people have given that when Shakyamuni, there's one of the 7 Pure Land masters that Shinran points to as real key pivot points before the full revelation of the Dharma of true Shin Buddhism was really delivered. But one of the key guys was a man named Shantao, and he wrote this amazing parable that's really become famous all over. I mean, it's quoted in literature, like the Sermon on the Mount. It's just a beautiful thing. It's called Two Rivers in the White Path. And this guy is being chased and he's terrified, and I'm not going to get into all those details why. And there are 2 rivers, one's a river of fire, the other's a river of water. The river of fire represents all our anger feelings. The river of water represents all our greed and our lust and our attachment feelings. And between those 2 rivers is a narrow white path that separates them, and it's about 6 inches wide. And so this guy is running on one side of this path to get away from, everybody who's chasing him, wants to kill him, wants whatever. Okay, and so he gets to the beginning of that white path, and he's afraid. I would be afraid too. It's terrible rivers, 6 inches wide. It's a tough deal. And so behind him, at that moment, he hears the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha. And Shakyamuni says, don't be afraid to go through the path. There's another Buddha waiting at the other end of it, Amida Buddha. And he can see Amida Buddha there. He said, just go on the path and you will be safe. You'll be able to cross. And at the end, you'll be safe in Amida Buddha's arms. Tremendous thing. And the reason I tell you this story right now is that Shakyamuni himself is telling this guy, don't just take refuge in me. Go to this guy, Amida Buddha, the greatest of all the Buddhas. And I'll tell you guys another time why I talk about it all the time on the group. But go to him, take refuge in him. And so I said to my friend, I don't just take refuge in Shakyamuni, but as a true Shin Buddhist, I take refuge even further in Amida Buddha. Next, the Dharma. I don't just take refuge in the Dharma that comes from Shakyamuni, but even further, I take refuge in the Dharma that comes from Amida Buddha. And finally, the Sangha. Yes, I take refuge in the entire global Sangha, regardless of what school or sect of Buddhism we're talking about. But in particular, I take refuge in the Sangha of true Shin Buddhists who have found this path to be the right path for them in their journey and their seeking of full and final enlightenment or Buddhahood. And so she said these things. Very simple, just like the first group of things. And again, she just felt tremendous. Okay? It really nailed it down for her that where she was at, where she had come to, where her karma had ripened to in this life, was that she definitely wanted to be a Buddhist. And within that broad category with, the so-called 84,000 teachings, that's a metaphorical number, of course, she wanted to be a Buddhist of this Sangha school, a true Shin Buddhist, a student, we won't say disciple, a student of Master Shinrin, or Shinrin Shonin as he's often known. And Master Shinrin himself said, I am a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha. So that's basically the message I have today. I just think it's so important. And if you haven't nailed this down, based on where you're at, if you're not yet clear about true Shin Buddhism, then I don't say it's time to take refuge in Amida in any sense. But if you're clear about being a Buddhist, then definitely, if you haven't taken refuge in Shakyamuni, definitely you'll be better for it. I'm not telling you you have to do it, by the way, because the truth is you don't have to do it. I know this is going to sound contentious to some people who are more traditionalists than I am, but we have documentation of Master Renyo going around when Shinrin was just his young disciple, 29, 30 years old. Master Renyo was 30, 40 years older than him. And Master he's dragging Shinrin along, of course, to learn. And he comes upon a guy who's, a total illiterate. There's so many in northern rural Japan's medieval times. People literally couldn't read and write. They literally didn't know anything about Buddhism because the Buddhist establishment didn't bother going to northern rural Japan. They didn't bother talking to these people. But Shinrin and his teacher, Master Renyo, were. So, they encountered this guy who's just a classic, peasant type, okay? And simple man, no pretensions, no real head knowledge. And Master Renyo just talked with him for a while. I don't know if it was an hour or 2 hours. And at the end of it, he says to young Shinrin, this man's salvation is assured. Did the guy ever take formal refuge at all in his talk with Master Renyo? I don't know. I really don't. It's just as possible that he didn't, that he did. But whatever they dialogued about, at the end of the dialogue, this guy said, because his karma was right, this is my life. This is who I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. And so he entrusted himself and his karmic destiny entirely to Amida Buddha and his primal vow. And here it is. If you will do that one thing, entrust yourself and your karmic destiny to Amida and his primal vow, as Shakyamuni and Amida encourage us to do, even if you never say anything else about taking refuge, you have fully taken refuge just in that one declaration. It's what we call the third pillar, the third fundamental idea of true Shin Buddhism. If we entrust ourselves fully to Amida based on his primal vow, and in his primal vow he said, when I become a Buddha, this was when he still wasn't a Buddha, I will create a place, and if you will entrust yourself to me fully, when you take birth after this life is over, you will immediately come to my place called the Pure Land, and you will immediately experience the transformation to Buddhahood. That was the teaching. It's the core teaching of our school. So anyway, that's it for today. Once again, please feel free to write me if you'd like to talk more about this, or you'd like me to take you through a taking refuge ceremony, if you will, or whatever, over the phone or on Skype. It would be my honor to do that, actually. So I'll talk to you again soon, and I'm glad to be able to share this with you.